I arrived at what was supposed to be a quiet dinner and walked into 42 guests, custom decor, and a banner that said, "Welcome, baby John." My brother smiled. My mom hugged me and said, "We used your bonus. You weren't even supposed to know yet." I just nodded. That night, I logged in, froze every linked account, reversed 6 charges, and pulled back the entire $7,800. By next week, their mortgage was flagged, their cards declined, and a foreclosure warning was on the door. I walked up the driveway to what my mom had promised would be a quiet family dinner. Just me, my mom, my dad, and my brother celebrating his girlfriend's pregnancy announcement. Nothing fancy, she'd said. Maybe order some pizza and catch up. The first red flag should have been the dozen cars lining the street. The second should have been the catering van pulling away from the house. But I was tired from a 14-hour workday and honestly just wanted to eat something that wasn't from a vending machine. I pushed open the front door and walked straight into what looked like a full-scale celebration. Balloons everywhere. A dessert table that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. Custom photo booth set up in the corner. And hanging across the living room, a massive banner reading, "Welcome, baby John," in gold lettering. 42 people. I counted them later when I was trying to process everything. 42 people who all turned to look at me like I was the guest of honor at my own surprise party. Except this wasn't my party. This was my brother's baby shower, and apparently, I was the one who'd paid for it. My brother appeared beside me wearing a grin so wide it looked painful. He clapped me on the shoulder and started talking about how amazing this all was, how they'd managed to pull everything together so quickly, how the baby was going to have such a great uncle. His words felt distant, like I was hearing them through water. Then Mom materialized with that particular smile she wore when she thought she was being clever. She wrapped me in a hug that lasted too long and whispered in my ear that they'd used my bonus money for the party. I wasn't even supposed to know about it yet, she said. It was going to be a surprise. I just nodded. The thing is, I'd been helping my family financially for 3 years. Ever since Dad's construction business went under and they started struggling with the mortgage, I'd linked my bonus account to their checking account for emergencies. Real emergencies. Medical bills. Urgent house repairs. Not baby showers for a kid who wasn't even born yet. But standing there surrounded by strangers eating expensive catered food, watching my brother pose for photos at a custom backdrop that probably cost more than most people spend on their actual wedding, I realized my definition of emergency was very different from theirs. I spent the next 2 hours playing the role of supportive brother and uncle-to-be. People kept congratulating me on how generous I was, how lucky my brother was to have family like me. A few relatives made jokes about when I was going to settle down and start my own family, maybe get some of this financial support flowing my way. Every joke felt like a knife twist. Around 9 p.m., I made my excuses and left. Mom tried to send me home with leftover cake, but I declined. I had some thinking to do. The drive home took 20 minutes, and I spent every minute of it getting angrier. Not just about the money, though that stung plenty. It was the presumption. The casual assumption that my hard-earned bonus was somehow communal family property. The fact that they'd planned this elaborate celebration and invited dozens of people without mentioning it to the person funding it. I'd worked 80-hour weeks for the last quarter to earn that bonus. Missed dates, skipped meals, turned down social invitations. Also, I could have a financial cushion and help my family when they needed it. Apparently, they needed it for a party. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. The damage was worse than I'd expected. $7,800. Gone. Spread across 6 different charges over the past week. Catering. Decorations. Photo booth rental. Even a charge for custom cocktail napkins with the baby's name on them. I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. Then I started making calls. The bank's fraud department was surprisingly helpful once I explained that several large charges had been made without my authorization. Technically, I had authorized access to the account, but I certainly hadn't authorized a $7,000 baby shower. The representative walked me through the process of freezing the linked accounts and initiating charge reversals. It took until 2 a.m., but I managed to reverse every single charge. The catering company would get their money back from my family's account, not mine. Same with the decorator, the photo booth people, and whoever sold them $40 worth of custom napkins. Then I called the bank again and removed the emergency access I'd given my parents. 3 years of financial support officially ended. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in months. Update 1. The call started the next morning. First, Mom, crying and confused about why their checking account was suddenly $7,000 in the red. She couldn't understand what had happened. Had there been some kind of banking error? I explained very calmly that I'd reversed the charges for the party. She went quiet for a long moment, then asked why I would do something so cruel. Didn't I understand that they'd already spent the money? The vendors were going to want payment. How were they supposed to fix this? I told her they could start by asking the 42 party guests to chip in. After all, they'd all enjoyed the expensive food and decorations. She hung up on me. Dad called an hour later, angrier than I'd heard him in years. He wanted to know what kind of game I thought I was playing, pulling money back like some kind of vindictive child. Family helped family, he said. That's what we did. I agreed. Family helped family with emergencies. Medical bills. Mortgage payments when someone lost their job. Not lavish parties to celebrate pregnancies that could have been celebrated just as meaningfully with a home-cooked dinner and a grocery store cake. He told me I was being unreasonable and hung up. My brother's call came that afternoon. He was panicking. The catering company was threatening to take them to collections. The party rental place wanted their money immediately, or they'd repossess the photo booth equipment they'd left behind. His girlfriend was crying because she thought this was somehow her fault. I listened to him spiral for about 5 minutes before I interrupted. I told him that if he'd wanted to throw an expensive party, he should have planned to pay for it himself. The concept seemed revolutionary to him. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. Over the next few days, I started seeing the bigger picture of what my financial support had enabled. Mom mentioned casually that they'd been planning to use my next bonus to redo their kitchen. Dad had apparently told his poker buddies that his son was taking care of things financially, which explained why he'd been betting more aggressively lately. They weren't just taking my money. They were planning my financial future without consulting me. Update 2. By the end of the week, the situation had escalated beyond bounce party payments. When I froze their access to my account, I'd unknowingly triggered a domino effect through their entire financial structure. Turns out, they'd been using the regular transfers from my account as collateral for their spending. When those transfers stopped and the party charges reversed, their account went massively negative. The bank started bouncing other payments. Their mortgage got flagged for insufficient funds. 3 credit card payments failed, triggering late fees and interest rate hikes. Mom called me crying, saying they'd received a foreclosure warning. Their credit cards had been frozen. Dad's truck payment had bounced, and the dealership was threatening repossession. Part of me felt terrible. I hadn't intended to destroy their entire financial life. I just wanted them to face consequences for spending money that wasn't theirs. But the bigger part of me was angry that it had gotten this bad. How had they structured their entire financial existence around money that wasn't guaranteed? How had they been living so far beyond their means that one missed month of support could trigger foreclosure proceedings? I told Mom I'd think about helping with the mortgage payment, but only if they agreed to financial counseling and complete transparency about their spending. She agreed immediately, desperately. That weekend, I drove over to their house with a notebook and my laptop. Time for some hard truths. The financial records were worse than I'd imagined. They'd been living almost entirely off my monthly transfers for the past year. Dad's disability payments and Mom's part-time job barely covered groceries and utilities. Everything else, mortgage, car payments, insurance, entertainment, had been coming from me. But they'd never told me this. They'd presented each request for help as a temporary emergency. A rough month here, an unexpected expense there. Never mentioning that they'd restructured their entire lifestyle around my income. I spent 3 hours going through their expenses with them. The results were sobering. They were spending almost twice what they earned every single month. The deficit was made up entirely by my contributions, which they'd apparently started considering guaranteed income rather than occasional help. We worked out a bare-bones budget that they could actually afford on their real income. It meant selling Dad's truck and buying something cheaper, canceling several subscription services. No more eating out. No more poker games with cash buy-ins. They agreed to everything, but I could see the resentment building. This felt like punishment to them, not natural consequences of their choices. I told them I'd help with one mortgage payment to prevent foreclosure, but after that, they were on their own. They had to prove they could stick to the budget for 3 months before I'd consider any future emergency help. And there would never again be joint access to my accounts. Mom cried. Dad stormed out of the room. But they agreed. Update 3. 3 weeks later, my brother showed up at my apartment. He looked exhausted. The baby shower disaster had apparently created relationship problems beyond just the financial ones. His girlfriend had been mortified when she found out the party was funded by stolen money. That's how she saw it, anyway. Stolen money. She'd insisted they try to pay back every guest who'd brought gifts, which was impossible since they didn't have any money to begin with. She'd moved back in with her parents temporarily while they figured out how to move forward. The stress was affecting her pregnancy. Her doctor had recommended counseling. My brother wanted to know if I'd consider helping them pay for couples therapy. Not a lot of money, he said, just enough to get them back on track. I looked at him sitting in my living room, asking for more money 3 weeks after his family had stolen nearly $8,000 from me, and I realized something had fundamentally shifted in our relationship. I told him no. He got angry then, really angry, in a way I'd rarely seen from him. He accused me of destroying his family over money, of being petty and vindictive, of caring more about my bank account than his relationship or his baby. I let him vent for about 10 minutes. Then I asked him a simple question. At any point during the planning of that party, had he wondered where the money was coming from? He went quiet. I pressed the point. Had he asked Mom how she was planning to pay for professional catering for 42 people? Had he wondered about the cost of custom decorations and photo booth rentals? Had it occurred to him that maybe, just maybe, he should have been involved in the financial planning for his own child's celebration? He mumbled something about trusting Mom to handle the details. That's when I realized the real problem. It wasn't just that they'd taken my money. It was that none of them had developed any sense of financial responsibility because I'd been enabling them for years. They'd grown comfortable making expensive decisions and assuming someone else would handle the consequences. I told my brother that if he wanted to save his relationship, he needed to figure out how to support his family on his own income. I'd helped enough. More than enough. He left without saying goodbye. Update 4. 2 months later, I got a call from my aunt. Family gossip travels fast, and apparently, I'd been officially designated as the villain in this story. At the last family gathering, I'd been painted as the selfish brother who'd ruined a baby shower and nearly caused his parents to lose their house. My aunt wanted to hear my side of things. I gave her the full story. The years of financial support. The emergency account that became a slush fund. The surprise party funded with my bonus money. The complete lack of financial transparency or responsibility from my family. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she told me something I hadn't known. She'd been wondering for months how my parents had been affording their lifestyle. Dad had been talking about expensive purchases, fancy dinners out, even a potential vacation. On disability payments and a part-time retail job, none of it made sense. Now she understood. I'd been subsidizing their entire life without realizing it. She also told me that my brother and his girlfriend had broken up. The financial stress, combined with the revelation that his family had essentially stolen money to celebrate their pregnancy, had been too much for the relationship. He was living back at home with Mom and Dad, sleeping in his old room at 27 years old. The baby was due in 4 months. I felt bad about the breakup, but I couldn't bring myself to feel responsible for it. They'd created this situation through their choices. I just stopped enabling it. My aunt asked if I planned to reconcile with the family before the baby was born. She thought it would be good for everyone, especially the child, to have extended family support. I told her I wasn't opposed to rebuilding relationships, but it would have to be on different terms. No more financial entanglement. No more assumptions about my money. No more treating me like a bank account with legs. She understood. Final update. It's been 6 months since the baby shower incident. My nephew was born healthy 3 weeks ago. I found out through social media, not a phone call. I sent a card and a modest gift to the hospital. Nothing extravagant. A simple baby outfit and a children's book. Inside the card, I wrote that I hoped to have a relationship with my nephew as he grew up, and that I wished everyone health and happiness. My brother texted me a thank you, the first communication we'd had in months. My parents are still struggling financially, but they've managed to keep the house. Dad found part-time work with his old construction crew. Mom picked up more hours at the store. They're living within their actual means for the first time in years, and while it's an adjustment, they're making it work. I still feel guilty sometimes. When I see social media posts about family gatherings I wasn't invited to, or when I think about my nephew growing up without knowing his uncle well, I wonder if I overreacted. But then I remember the feeling of walking into that party, Seeing $7,000 of my money transformed into decorations and catered food without my knowledge or consent, and I know I made the right choice. I've learned to set boundaries. Real boundaries. The kind that protect not just my bank account, but my sense of self-respect and autonomy. The kind that force other people to take responsibility for their choices instead of assuming someone else will handle the consequences. My family calls me selfish now. Maybe they're right. Maybe choosing to prioritize my own financial security over their comfort is selfish. But I've decided I'm okay with that kind of selfishness. I've started dating someone new. She's a teacher who lives within her means and has never once asked me about my income or made assumptions about my willingness to pay for things. When we go out, we split the check. When she can't afford something, she says no instead of expecting someone else to cover it. It's refreshing in ways I didn't know I needed. I hope someday my family and I can rebuild our relationships on healthier terms. I hope my nephew grows up understanding the value of money and the importance of financial responsibility. I hope my brother learns to support his child without relying on other people's generosity. But mostly, I hope I never again find myself walking into a surprise party funded with my own stolen money while everyone expects me to smile and say thank you. Some lessons are expensive. This one cost me $7,800 and most of my family relationships. It was worth every penny.